Happy Sunday, everyone. This Sunday afternoon is marred by two big stories. The first is Donald Trump is threatening to use the powers of the presidency to kill an existing deal that would bring the Washington Commanders to Washington, D.C. from their current home in southern Maryland, only if they do not change their name from the Washington Commanders to the Washington Redskins. On the other hand, there's some major immigration news this afternoon as an 82-year-old man who has been in the United States of America for more than 30 years from Chile, who sought political asylum here in the United States because he was tortured in Chile. Well, he lost his green card. He made the mistake of going back to get another one, was picked up by ICE agents at his appointment to get a new green card, even though he was lawfully there, deported, even though his family was told he was dead. Before I continue, please consider subscribing to support my work or clicking that button below or sending a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas. Your support allows me to continue doing this and holding power to account. Let's start with the Commander's story. So this morning, Donald Trump put out a Truth Social post where he said, quote, "The Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. There is a big clamoring for this." He further went on to say that the Cleveland Indians, which is the baseball team in Cleveland, should revert to its former name, the Cleveland Guardians should revert to their former name as the Cleveland Indians, claiming Native Americans in, quote, "massive numbers want the change to preserve their heritage," without backing that up. Donald Trump is now going so far as suggesting that he will kill a deal, though, this afternoon if the Commanders don't bring don't bring their name back, don't bring the Redskins' name back, essentially. So both teams changed names in response to longstanding criticism that the original names and mascots were racially insensitive to the Native Americans amid a broader racial justice movement. Trump went on to incorrectly refer to the Guardians as one of the baseball's, quote, "original six," and called on the team's owner to get it done. Now, Guardians leadership reaffirmed they will not change the name again, and the Commanders' new ownership has no plans to reverse the rebranding. But this afternoon, Trump is going so far as saying that he may put a, quote, "restriction on the Commanders if they do not change the name back to the original Washington Redskins moniker and get rid of the ridiculous, quote unquote, Washington Commanders moniker. He won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington, D.C. Now, let me put that for you in perspective. He's using the powers of the presidency to threaten a football team that if it does not go back to an old racist name, he will kill a deal that will have significant value to Washington, D.C., a deal that has been in the works for many years now. Pivoting to immigration, Luis Leon, an 82-year-old legal U.S. resident and asylum recipient from Chile, was secretly deported by ICE after visiting a Pennsylvania immigration office to replace a green card that he lost. He was detained without explanation, he was separated from his wife, and he was later falsely reported as deceased by a mysterious caller claiming to be an immigration lawyer. Leon was later found in a hospital in Guatemala, a country that he has no ties to, after reportedly being held in an ICE facility in Minnesota. His deportation has occurred without due process, without documentation, and outside official ICE deportation records. Now, a recent Supreme Court ruling allows deportation to other countries other than a person's origin, which may have played a role here. But Leon, who suffers from multiple health conditions, had lived in the United States for nearly 40 years. His family is now traveling to Guatemala to visit him, while ICE says that it's investigating what could have happened. New polls show a majority of Americans now oppose Donald Trump's aggressive immigration crackdown, with 55% saying ICE raids have gone too far, 57 to 58% rejecting massive migration or migrant detention facilities, and there's growing support for nationwide protests. Meanwhile, the Trump administration granted ICE a $75 billion funding boost and will expand the detention beds in the country from 40,000 to 100,000. Tulsi Gabbard, Donald Trump's intelligence chief, the director of national intelligence, is doubling down on the idea of prosecuting former President Barack Obama for what she calls a conspiracy to undermine the 2016 election, on relying on the Steele dossier that she says has now been debunked concerning Russian interference in the election. Folks, Barack Obama will not be prosecuted. He has complete immunity. Remember that under the Supreme Court ruling? But she does suggest that Kash Patel, the FBI director, and Pam Bondi, the attorney general, should go after Obama-era intelligence officials, including folks like James Clapper. The Philippine president will meet with Donald Trump this week to discuss trade following Trump's threat to impose a 20% tariff on Philippine exports. Alan Dershowitz, Jeffrey Epstein's former lawyer, said that grand jury transcripts are less revealing than discovery, depositions, and records from related cases, emphasizing that some documents could name falsely accused individuals. Meanwhile, Senator Amy Klobuchar criticized Trump for the growing controversy, saying it stems from the promises he and his administration made to release them while in office. Let's run through some foreign policy news quickly. First, U.S. envoy Adam Boehler urged countries like Iran, Afghanistan, and Russia to release detained Americans, citing what happened in Venezuela recently. Representative Adam Smith said only firm U.S. pressure under Trump will force Putin to negotiate in Ukraine. A fragile ceasefire in Syria between the government, Druze, and Bedouin groups appears to be holding, even though a planned prisoner swap has not yet occurred. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio's influence is growing in the Trump administration right now. That's all the news. If you want to support my work, subscribe today by clicking the button below or send a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas, and I'll see you in the morning.